All right, that is recording. Good to go. Yeah, I'll kick us off with this one. We'll go from there. Usually you and I are talking US news and politics, but today I want to talk to you about your new book, Crafting Innovative Places for Australia's Knowledge Economy. Firstly, we've talked about it before, but what is your background in crafting urban places?
Well, I'm an urban economist, urban planner, taught that for years, and was very much involved by accident in Silicon Valley at the University of California at Berkeley. So I had been tracking high-tech and high-tech concerns for 30 years and providing guidance here in Australia and around the world. And much of my work is in this space. I'll be going to Korea soon, to Incheon, to work on this very idea that it's the space and the place that helps the economy. It's not just grabbing a couple of scientists off the street.
Firstly, what is the knowledge economy?
Well, the knowledge economy is what we're doing right here. We're not producing a product. We're not making anything, but we're providing information, knowledge. And the knowledge economy also goes in through the knowledge by creating new products and devices. Healthcare is the best example, where we're getting on the edge of dealing with things like breast cancer and so forth. The bio-ear, all these things come from taking knowledge from other fields, engineering, biotechnology, audio science, and so forth, and put them together, and you come up with something like the cochlear ear. So the knowledge economy is the production of services primarily, but some goods based in knowledge and not raw materials.
I love that because, as you say, not just grabbing a couple of scientists off the street, it clearly comes into play in ways we might not have anticipated.
Well, it comes in place in a very different way. For the last 30, 40, 50, maybe 60 years, our economies around the world have been based on taking something out of the ground, molding it, and turning it into a new form and shape. Now we've come to a point where computers can help us do that. Things called robots are around. So what do humans do? Humans now have to stretch knowledge into goods and services, and they do that in a very different way than the factory. In the factory, one person did thing A, the next person did thing B, the next person did thing C, and the factory kept the knowledge of how they did that away from even people in the factory. The knowledge economy is very different. It is a collaborative economy. People come together in places and spaces like the ones you see here, working together on sometimes individual projects, but when you reassemble them, they become a collective project or a process that is being used to advance science, to advance man, and to provide new wealth.
Pulling this quote out, Australia's cities and towns must become the incubators and not the pass-through gates for generating competitive knowledge-based jobs. So what do cities and towns actually need to do that?
Well, let's start with how we got there. Our major cities, our capital cities, are on the water. And because they're on the water, goods could come in and go out. And so the farmers on the interiors slaughtered their animals and so forth as close to that location as possible, and then move those goods, either in finished form or unfinished form, through ports. And at those ports, that's where the money was exchanged. So our cities have grown up exchanging goods. Now we have to exchange knowledge. And the interesting thing about knowledge, it can grow up almost anywhere. So we have places like Orem, Utah, that produces most of our word processing, a very small town in the middle of nowhere, we'd say, in the United States. But because they have accumulated a group of scientists who are interested in a topic, they can produce that good there. Not only can they produce it there, they can send it around the world because you download your software. You don't get a package. You used to get a package, but today you download it. So you can send all kinds of goods and services around the world very quickly, very easily, but you have to have a town where people want to be. And that's the trick that's in this book. How do you create that kind of place where people want to be? And there's some real fundamental ingredients. The first is having a knowledge factory. We used to call those universities. But in fact now, today, they're knowledge stores. In that knowledge store, you pick up information. And then you take that information with other people who have information and make something else out of it. The other thing you must have are the arts. People, when they're growing their knowledge, want to grow those brain cells. That's what we try to do on this show, grow brain cells, right? And maybe we'll grow a few listeners. But the idea here is that the people want to be in a situation where they can work, not 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is gone. Some people start at 3 o'clock in the morning. Spike Lee, for example, makes his movies on Sundays. And like me, he has a BlackBerry, so he communicates the old-fashioned way, but makes very new movies. And all the things he can use by himself, Spike Lee, to make a movie are astounding these days. So people want the arts, and they want the arts to be around them. The third thing they want is what we're calling funkiness. That is a place where there's a little bit of mystery, a little interesting, and so on. Think of how our towns in the middle of this country, in the middle of most countries are. They are deadly dull. There is nothing funky about them. And again, the places like Orem and so forth, and places in the middle of Massachusetts have become very interesting places with that interesting coffee shop and a person playing the violin at lunchtime. And all this stuff grows interest, promotes brain action, and eventually a product or service.
In terms of physical space, in terms of just raw geography, looking at the context of Australia, you've noted how vast geographical distances created an obstacle for the initial growth of trade and innovation in Australia. Now, you mentioned, of course, now people are able to send these things all around the world with a click of a mouse. Does that geography still have a place to play now?
Well, interestingly enough, geography plays an even greater role. For example, if Australia had a very fast train, the brain surgeon in Melbourne could work with the geoscientist in Brisbane in the same day. And that would make an enormous impact on our economy, because we're too small to have 50 brain surgeons in every place and the same number of geoscientists. So speed and distance are still important. Our internet, when the guy put in my NBN, he said he was from Pakistan. I said, that's very interesting. He says, yes, my internet 100 times faster than yours. So distance makes a difference, particularly if you have low speeds with the internet, and we have very low speeds. Korea is within our time zone, and their speeds are 900 times as fast as ours, and their economy is going faster because they're able to communicate much better and much faster. So it's the small distances that make a difference, not the great distances.
Where are we now in Australia in terms of having these innovation hubs?
Well, we have a few. Redfern, not very far from where this station is an excellent example of a place where scientists are coming together and beginning to make new goods and services, and the university's right next door. And then you have Green Square, which is not much farther away, where they're inducing some technology precincts and the like. Melbourne's done a relatively good job in that with their tech centers near RMIT, and even out in Bendigo and Bathurst and places like that. We have these incubators growing very small, but right now they're just kind of work away from home centers. They don't include that raw bringing together scientists and inventors and social actors to make products. Let me give you an example. In the University of California at Berkeley, where I was, many of the scientists had firms, and those firms were just down the street from the university. So the scientist worked part of his day or her day in the firm and part day in the university. Not only the university condoned it, they reinforced it. They said, this is what you want to do. Here, they want to know where you are. How come you're not at the university? How come you're not teaching that class? Well, professors at the University of California usually teach one subject a year. So most of their time is devoted to inventing, to expanding, and the like. And we haven't gotten to that yet. We've confused universities with teaching and not research. The other matter is, where do we put these things? Well, we try to put them in the places where the government can command and control. That's just the opposite of every other city in the world. The government provides the assets, it facilitates development that doesn't meet the codes and so forth, but we want it to fit the code, fit the building code, and so on, and drive out all the innovation. So we have a ways to go, and that's the reason for the book.
We've seen a decline in manufacturing here in Australia, vicious debate over the mining industry. Are we propping up old industry at the sake of new?
Well, in another show, we talked about 2050 as the end of the world. It won't make any difference if that's the case. But between now and 2050, we have to be a smart economy. And that is, with all the people in Asia living around us, let's say we got into the climate change agenda and we were helping the people in Indonesia reduce their cost in farming by making small, lightweight machinery and technology that aided them and brought us revenue and income rather than digging up coal. And that's what we really have to do. We have to make those products, those goods and services that our neighbors need, and they need a lot of them, to forestall the effects of climate change. We have to do the things that they need now as they're entering the middle class. They're not dying at 20 and 30, so they want other goods and services, lightweight goods and services. So the kind of thing that they'll want is not the old gas guzzling automobile that we used to produce, but they want something small and battery operated. We can do all these things. We have the right land. We're close enough to our customers. The business customers are too far away. The United States has a strategic advantage, and the Scandinavian countries have strategic advantage on the doorstep of Europe. Is just baloney. Very, very small countries like Singapore that don't have all those strategic advantages are really kicking goals. We need to do the same.
So with enough innovation, can we still punch above our weight in the Asian century, seeing so much growth and an increase in the knowledge economy amongst those world's biggest populations?
We have to. It's not a question, can we? We must. We don't have a choice here. Sure, we'll get another mine or two up and going, but the truth of the matter is mining is going out everywhere. And when it goes out, we better have something else to do. And 2050 is a pretty good yardstick. If we don't have those new services and goods on by 2050, we're lost. And I'm not talking about some magic here. This country started out as a farming country, and our cities were farm cities. There's still remnants of that. But when manufacturing came, the cities adapted. So I'm simply saying there's another adaptation that many American cities and European cities, and particularly Asian cities, are going through, where they're adapting to the knowledge economy. We have to make that adaptation, or we'll be left not just far behind, we will be in the rear, and we'll have people leaving Australia rather than coming to Australia.
Ed, best of luck with the book, mate, with the latest.
I hope everybody reads it, because if we don't, we may be very lost.
Beautiful. Just cutting that off there. Easy.